Up everybody, it's Johnny P, the Stonegate Success Coach, and as promised, I thought I would share some of my thoughts and feelings with you guys. And this one's a bit random and I'm still trying to think it through, but this is around attention. I started to think about this yesterday. Have you ever had that running mind? Normally when you're in bed and you're trying to get to sleep and your mind's just generating all these thoughts and all these stories in her head, and they're so random, aren't they? They just like go from one extreme to another. You know, 1 minute you're thinking about what shopping I need to get tomorrow, and then next minute you're thinking about where you're going on holiday, and it just goes all over the place. And I've always called that the running mind, and that's just our mind generating all these stories. And again, it's a natural and normal thing to do. And then I started thinking about something I saw yesterday. I was on the park and this guy was playing with a remote control car, and this dog was just running and running after this remote control car, and it reminded me of a story of what my mum told me years and years ago. And he goes, a dog that is allowed to chase cars will always chase cars. And I don't know if you ever been on a holiday, normally in a hot place, and you drive by and then there's always these crazy dogs that just run after your car, isn't there? I've lived in Bulgaria for a while and I had these dogs chasing my car all the time, and I started to think about this sort of as a kind of link to that's sometimes how our mind is we get distracted by so many different things. And we have so many distractions, and I call it, don't get distracted by the distractions, but there's so many of them, especially with technology and everything else that we've got that's just bombarded us, and our mind just goes off on all these different tangents. And I started to think about, okay, so when we start to look at attention, because that's what it is, what kind of habits can we put in place that will replace these distractions and this sort of ill discipline? And it was just a really interesting conversation I had with myself around the skill of attention, and with that comes intention. So like yesterday, my intention was to read my book just for half an hour, and within that I must have picked up my phone about 4 times. So as a habit now, I'd now put my phone in the drawer. So if I'm going to go and read, I find a quiet room or a quiet place, and I don't take my phone with me, and that becomes a habit. And I started to really think about this, the way our mind is just generating all these distractions and our attention is slowly getting less and less and less. And then I started to think about what our actions and our thoughts, when they're linked together, and what actions do our thoughts provoke, because there's a skill around what's called observing and noticing, and it's something that I want to try and help with here, and it's a psychological skill, and it's something that you can have forever. Start to step back and notice what your mind is telling you, because it's interesting. Notice the dialogue in your head, and that's what your mind is telling you. And again, yesterday, my judge appeared. So what I did, I noticed that I was doing lots of judging yesterday. I was judging people on social media. I was judging people on television. I was judging people in the street. And it's interesting, again, this is a natural thing that the mind does, but I started to really think about how's this empowering me, and I start to judge myself. And this is one thing where the mind, if we're not careful, can take control, and it starts to judge internally. It starts to be that self-critic, and this is where sometimes the watch out is. It's the I'm not good enough stories, I'm too old stories, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too big, I'm not disciplined. And we start to place judgment on ourselves. And again, this generates our thoughts and our attention, and then it leads us to certain actions. So what I've done now is I practice this I noticing what my mind is telling me. So it's called noticing. So first of all, the question would be, what is my mind telling me at the moment? So just to stop and become aware and say, right, okay, so my mind is making judgments on people. So I now name that mind. That story is called the judge, and I call it, oh, here comes the judge again. I don't try and get rid of it. I just recognize it, notice it, and then I name it, and it loses its influence over me. And over time, what I've realized is my judging thoughts have got less and less and less, because I've started to notice them. I've started to notice that these thoughts bring on different actions in me, the person that I don't want to be. And also they've started to lose their influence because I've named them, and I call mine the judge. So try it. Next time you hear your mind judging somebody or something, or more importantly yourself, just say, hello judge, welcome back. Remember, it's only a thought. It doesn't have any power on us. It seems like it can because it's a strong thought. But you can name that thought, name it the judge, and then let it lose its influence on you because you're creating distance. And the other thing is, I started to think about, there's a lot around what people want to be. And it's interesting that, about I want to be this, I want to be that. There's another way I look at it, is about what is it that you don't want to become? Because that's an interesting thing to write down on your pad, isn't it? Is about, actually, I don't want to become this. And then you start to think about, okay, so what don't I need to practice if I don't want to become this thing? So what am I doing in the present moment that is actually making me go towards this thing I don't want to become? So think of it another way. What is it I don't want to become? Write that down, and then say, okay, so what are the things that I don't want to be doing, as in actions and practicing, that's going to lead me to become that thing, whatever that is. And that's, again, individual to everybody else. So there's a lot going on there. Things around our attention. Attention is a skill. Practicing some habits, put in place the habits that replace this distraction and sometimes this ill discipline. Start to notice your thoughts and start to name them, especially that judge. Stop the judging. I don't think we'll ever stop it, but we can certainly notice it, name it, and let it lose its influence on us. And then look at something differently. And I did this yesterday about, what is it I don't want to become? And I wrote that down, and I said, okay, so what are the things that I need to steer clear of to ensure that I don't become that individual? Anyway, look, another ramble. It's a lovely Saturday in Sheffield. I've just been out on the park chatting to my doggy friends. It's funny, isn't it? You know the dogs' names, but you don't know the individuals' names. So that's something that I'm going to try next week, is get to know the individual names of the dog owners. It's a challenge. So yeah, something to think about as a little challenge for me next week, is start to get to know the individuals who walk the dogs and not just the dog names. And dog walkers will know what I'm talking about. We get to know the dog names before we actually get to know the person. Interesting, isn't it? Old human behaviour. Anyway, look, have an amazing day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care for now. See ya.